and a theoretical physicist, if they were both given a pile of hay with a needle in it, Edison would take each piece of straw off until he ended up with the needle. Tesla would use a magnet. In other words, one was 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. Tesla was 99% inspiration, 1% perspiration. In fact, when he was introduced finally to Edison, when he arrived into the United States, Edison immediately took a dislike to him. Tesla, that is. He took a dislike to Tesla. Why? Because Tesla was very cultured, went to some of the finest universities in Europe, was well educated, very well dressed, spoke many languages fluently. Edison didn't. So Edison thought of him as a kind of a strange, odd individual, which, I might add, Tesla was. Okay. Handsome dude in many ways, dark sunken eyes, dark hair, big eyebrows. He was at every conceivable social event in New York City. He was the first person on everybody's guest list. But when he was introduced to Edison said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a job working for the Edison Company. And your first project would be, and if you can solve this, let me tell you what I want you to solve. Edison was building DC dynamos. These were devices that would produce DC current out to do whatever you want. Run an elevator up and down a building. There are still some in Boston, DC elevators. He wanted the problem solved that he wanted to get DC current over a long distance, which his dynamos couldn't do. The further away you got from his dynamo station, the dimmer the lights, etc. And he said, I'll tell you what I'll do with you, Tesla. You solve my problem with my dynamo, and I'll give you $50,000 as a bonus. This is, no, it's not the 19s, it's still in the 18s.
So $50,000 was real money?
It was $50,000. One of our buildings, three-story building, cost $75,000 to build. And his own labs. He wanted, and the $50,000 would do it. So Tesla said, I'll take the offer, I'll take the idea. So Tesla thinks like this. Now, this I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine. He would think up of a solution, design a piece of equipment in his head. Then he'd run it in his head, waiting for it to fail. He'd be walking down the street in New York with a friend of his and said, I knew it. What? Nicola, what? He says, a part failed. What part failed? I'm running a device in my head, and one of the parts wore out. Now, you have to think about that for a minute, right? So he came back into Edison's office with a piece of paper with sketches of how he could improve his DC dynamo, okay? And he handed it to Edison. Tom just handed it over his shoulder to a guy in the lab in the back and said, build this. It worked. Not only did it work, it was far way ahead of what Edison would have hoped for. So Tesla goes about working for the Edison Company, and he's waiting for his 50 grand, right? Months go by. No 50 grand in the paycheck, right? So finally he goes in and says, excuse me, sir, I know you're busy, but you remember what you said, you'd give me $50,000 if I solved your problem. And Edison just leaned back and laughed and says, you don't understand Yankee humor yet, do you? And Tesla left. Went out. Had very little money left. Was basically digging ditches in New York City. when a fellow by the name of George Westinghouse, I don't know if you've heard of George Westinghouse, but he hears about Tesla through friends that he's brilliant. So he finds him, and they hook up together. And before you know it, Niagara Falls Power Station was built with alternating current generators, which your house is powered by alternating current. But during that time, Edison knew that Westinghouse and Tesla were now in cahoots. He wanted to beat the Westinghouse Corporation to the punch. So in 1888, World's Fair, Edison demonstrates the first patented alternating current device. It would blow salamis all over the audience. He killed dogs, cats with the electric chair, horses. He killed an elephant. And you know what the Edison people said? They were Westinghousing these animals so that people wouldn't buy any Westinghouse product. This was vicious. And it wasn't until many years later that finally people understood that the alternating current motor and generator, the generator came first, then the motor was second. It was a natural extension. It was one or the other. And before you know it, Tesla was on his way. And the Edison Corporation was bought by a small company called General Electric. And it was the Edison General Electric Company. Years went by, not too many. It was the General Electric Edison. Then Edison was completely dropped off at the end of it, and it became General Electric GE.